For a solid streak of a decade, you could find at least 2 variants of a console sporting a candy-coated see-through exterior. The most fun part about it? It wasn't a limited edition or a rare exclusive console. No, this was the standard way a console looked. And standard it was. This realm of aesthetics chiefly took place in the Y2K era, the decade I was born into, and for many long years now I swore up and down that there was nothing visually I stayed fond of. Bright clashing colors, arcade flooring patterns, neon-soaked city lights, and jungle music. Lots and lots of jungle. But as the internet is ought to do, raising a rose-tinted glass to the days of yesteryear, I can finally admit it. I'm nostalgic for those times. And I'm yearning for that creativity again. In one way or another, I admit it, I'm caught up in the clear craze. The most notable company to sell clear consoles has a history as far back as 1758. This company has traded hands between families up until about 1970, wherein it merged with many other companies to become Jusco, Japan United Stores Company. Jusco would eventually become known as a juggernaut in Japan's supermarket industry, and by the late 90s, there would be stores all over Malaysia, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and the rest of China. Their conquest was slow, yet steady. Should you have found yourself in a Jusco store in Japan, you likely would have come across a limited edition console in their name. For their various anniversaries, they released a color run that would span many generations. And if you were to look in this catalog, you were to find probably a Nintendo 64, the Bandai WonderSwan, a Game Boy Advance, even a Game Boy Color. And as you'll soon see, this wasn't an uncommon occurrence. Japan's supermarket scene had a huge piece of the pie when it came to exclusive bundles. Jusco just happens to be the most prolific supplier, which had its pick of the litter for many of the consoles we'll be covering today. Speaking of which, I think now is no better time than ever to take you back and show you some of my favorite designs during the heydays of the clear craze. 1989 kicked off pretty strong with the first of Nintendo's translucent consoles. The Nintendo Game Boy could be purchased in the crystal clear variant, and this was one of the many unique colorways offered in the Play It Loud campaign.
The Game Boy Play It Loud series.
This run of console variants would define the color runs for its offspring, including the Game Boy Pocket, Color, and Advance. And the clear variant would arguably become the most famed of its collection, sporting a sheer plastic case revealing the board of the console. On the note of the Play It Loud and other marketing campaigns, none could be more notable and popular than the advertisements of the Nintendo 64. On June 23, 1996, the Nintendo 64 had been released to the public of Japan. Alongside its release was the patented Fun-tastic Color Series, a campaign showcasing the various color schemes the console would be available in. The coolest thing about this run to me is that they were released in 3 separate generations. The first generation was comprised of 6 different colors: jungle green, smoke black, fire orange, ice blue, watermelon red, and grape purple, sometimes referred to as midnight blue. Mysterious. The second generation of consoles are famous for its pale white underbelly, and I call this run the Gummy Sharks due to the similarities to the candy. I don't know, I think it's cute. The third generation is the most notable to me because it has arguably my favorite designs of any console to this date, and I'll tell you why. In 1999, there was a Japanese baseball team in the Fukuoka prefecture known then as the Daiei Hawks. They were owned by a supermarket chain of the same name, pretty similar to Jusco, wherein you could purchase an exclusive Nintendo 64. Easily the greatest color run, this is likely my favorite console theme of all time. They also released a Game Boy Advance in the same scheme, and it totally rules. Another one of the greatest color schemes actually comes before the Fun-tastic series. Nintendo of Europe made prototypes to test which color runs they wanted to manufacture, and this testing resulted in the unreleased clear purple prototype. The only photo that I can find has this faded pink hue to it. I like this aged version better than what was likely the intended color. It kind of reminds me of like the color shrimp. I don't know, it looks edible. I like that, okay? I just like it. Speaking of pink consoles, next time you're at a party and you want to look super cool and girly pop, bring up the fact that there was a Hello Kitty Dreamcast. In fact, there were 2. On November 19th, 1999, Japan saw an exclusive release of the Sega Dreamcast. This was allegedly to target the growing female audience in the country, sporting both a clear pink and blue color scheme. Bundled inside were the console, a matching controller, a keyboard, a VMU, and both Hello Kitty Dream Passport and Garden Panic. And apparently this exact scenario also happened for Resident Evil Code Veronica. which a mint condition bundle silently surfaced overnight onto eBay not that long ago. And if you want to grab it, it's only going to set you back about $18,000. That's a steal. In my opinion, the last hurrah for this aesthetic came in the form of the original Xbox.
Bill, you've certainly revolutionized the technology we know today.
There were 5 distinct colorways that the console would be available in during its run, and Microsoft really seemed to enjoy this idea, as they would repurpose these consoles for several different occasions and bundles. Or perhaps they were just trying to clear out the warehouse, who's to say? The Special Edition Xbox, otherwise known as the Skeleton, was a console celebrating Xbox's Japanese debut in 2001. These consoles came engraved with a production number, and autographed keychains by Bill Gates himself. That's quite a collectible.
It doesn't matter what you think, Bill.
Unfortunately, only 10,000 of 50,000 available were ever sold, and I really can't seem to find out what happened to the rest. Another notable entry came on May 2nd, 2003, which saw the release of the translucent green limited edition Xbox. This bundle was exclusive to Europe, celebrating the 1 year of Xbox overseas. This is the most common unique colorway of the Xbox, as it was identical to the Debug Development Kit consoles and was later repurposed for the Halo edition. So that makes at least 3 green Xboxes just floating around out there. And there's probably more. I'll be real. Speaking of Halo edition Xboxes, there was no other game franchise that was featured in bundles more with clear consoles. And funnily enough, there were gonna be even more. But it seems Microsoft pulled the plug on the idea considering just how poorly they seem to sell. The orange Halo Xbox was likely to be a tie-in with the game's launch, but it never released. And with 5 only ever known to exist, it makes it probably the rarest console I'll mention in this video. And arguably more abundant was the Crystal Clear Edition Xbox, which debuted in March of 2004, the 2nd year anniversary of Xbox. You can find it in many bundle deals across the world, and they still go for a few $100 loose on the internet, which to me is nice to see. Also, a lot of people who owned one said it lights up like a tanning salon when you start it up, which is kind of funny. Another variant was the Crystal Blue Xbox, which you could get bundled with a Halo 2 and Halo 2 headset. It was a clear blue Xbox with a white jewel faceplate. It also came in the Kasumi-chan bundle, which was a Dead or Alive bundle, and it came with a body pillow. I can't find any pictures of the body pillow. If I find it, hey, I'll put it up. That's nuts to me. We've got another Hello Kitty console. Were you expecting that? Because I wasn't. For nearly a decade, this Hello Kitty collector's pack was thought to be an April Fool's joke. And that adds up because, fitting to its dubious nature, in order to grab one, you needed to purchase a $5,000 TV. The console came bundled with Hello Kitty Mission Rescue and was thought to be another attempt to entice a female audience into purchasing an Xbox. It was only ever proven to be factual once photos began to surface online. Like, check out this Reddit post. Credit to Foreskin Paladin. I love my job, man. Hey, shoutouts to Foreskin Paladin. Nintendo came back swinging for the 20th anniversary of Pokemon. Japan saw an exclusive release of 4 themed 2DS systems, each centered around the original games. The console sported a retro clear coat pretty reminiscent of the Nintendo 64 controllers of the years past. These editions were available for pre-order only in the Japanese Pokemon centers. Eventually, Europe would also see these unique colorways, albeit in different circumstances. For instance, the release of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire graced the EU with console bundles of both the red and blue cases. Much like Microsoft, Nintendo had a knack for reusing designs for limited runs. One country would get it for one reason, and then another would get it for a different reason years later. I mean, I can't knock the strategy, it worked pretty well. But look, you've likely noticed that we've slowed down our pace. We started with a deluge of consoles, and slowly but surely devolved to not much but a drip feed. Which begs the question, what the hell happened? Well, put simply, they just fell out of fashion. I wish sincerely there was a more eloquent answer, but that just likely isn't the case. For nearly every console listed, there was a standard matte version of both a unit and its controller. And if you compare the recent lineages of Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, you can see where some dropped the influence and where some kept it. It was only a matter of time before things got a bit more desaturated again. You can likely chalk some of this up to the grungy monochrome we saw in the 2010s, but it was likely marketing. Like a lot. The 80s and 90s were revolutionary for household gaming. You didn't have to go to arcades anymore. And given that the age of gamers is now roughly in their mid-30s, it suffices to say that companies can expect lifelong customers of adults. And those adults are having kids, whom they can also capitalize on by utilizing a user-friendly but understated design. And look, despite my love for saccharine candy controllers of yesteryear, I admit, new age consoles are sleek and timeless. They're impressive capstones of design, even if I personally think it plays things a little safe. The obvious elephant in the room is also that to some it's an eyesore. And yeah, I get it. I've only really shown you the good examples, like the ones that took off. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder and all, but even I can see some of these being straight up tacky. This isn't to say that the days of the clear craze are a relic of the past. As decades come and go, we see a resurgence in things thought to be forgotten. Occasionally, we're thrown a bone with a limited edition console that's, you guessed it, translucent. And with the accrued wisdom of what works, what looks good, and what sells, I'd actually say we've nailed a happy medium between classy and fun. And though true, gone are the days of widely available consoles in these shells, demoted from standard issue to special edition. But I'm still just grateful we make them. We've reached a sunset age of this aesthetic, where consoles of this ilk were only manufactured once in a blue moon. There's been fledgling attempts to capture that magic again, each to their own extents. But I don't think we're ever gonna nail it again the way that we had before. And honestly, that's a-okay with me. The clear craze was a product of its time in the most crystalline sense. We don't really live in those days anymore. But that's far from a bad thing. Technology will continue to bull rush the lines of innovation and design. And with that evolution comes new forms. And instead of looking back at what was, we should look starry-eyed at what's next. And what one day we'll look back and remember as yet another stone in the lake of fucking rad-ass technology. Also, where were the clear GameCubes that would have fucking ruled? Where were those? You fucked up, Nintendo. You fucked up.